savage world of gods, steel, and survival. On screen it feels like myth, but the story behind it is even wilder. From scrapped futures to real teeth, real blades, and a score that roared like war drums, the legend was hammered together by chance, obsession, and madness. Stick around for 16 strange, surprising facts about Conan the Barbarian that most fans never hear. Secrets forged in fire, sand, and will alone. Fact 1. The Barbarian Who Barely Spoke. For a film built on raw strength and roaring battles, Conan the Barbarian opens with something unexpected: silence. Arnold Schwarzenegger barely speaks for the first 20 minutes, and across the whole film, he only has about 100 lines. But this wasn't laziness or lack of dialogue, it was deliberate. Director John Milius believed Conan's power came from presence, not words. He wanted the character to feel ancient, like a myth whispered through time. Every glare, every swing of the sword said more than any speech could. Arnold's thick Austrian accent, which some executives doubted, became part of that mystique, deep, deliberate, and unforgettable, and the reason for that silence is unusual. Fact 2. The post-apocalyptic Conan that never happened. Before swords and ancient kingdoms, Conan the Barbarian was almost a sci-fi nightmare. The first version of the script, written by Oliver Stone in the late 1970s, took place in a radioactive future, not the distant past. Civilization had collapsed after nuclear war, and Conan led an army of survivors through a wasteland filled with mutants and madness. The story stretched nearly 4 hours and would have cost over $40 million. Impossible for the time. Even Stone admitted, "I wrote something no one could film." Still, that early chaos laid the foundation for what became legend. When director John Milius took over, he stripped away the radiation and replaced it with myth, forging steel instead of fallout. Transition. But the dream of mutants and nuclear ruin didn't survive. Fact 3. From nuclear wasteland to ancient myth. When John Milius took over Conan the Barbarian, he didn't just rewrite the story, he reforged it. Gone were the mutants, machines, and wastelands. Milius envisioned a primal world where gods, warriors, and philosophy collided. He drew inspiration from samurai legends, Norse sagas, and Frank Frazetta's brutal paintings of muscle and fire. The result was a universe that felt ancient the moment it appeared on screen, half dream, half memory. Designer Ron Cobb, known for Alien, built temples and towers that looked worn by centuries, not weeks of set work. What began as a post-apocalyptic script became a cinematic myth drenched in sweat, ritual, and steel. While that mythic world looked ancient, some of its influences were all too real. Fact 4. The line that came from a real conqueror. One of the most famous lines in Conan the Barbarian wasn't written for the movie at all. When Conan declares, "Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of their women," he's quoting none other than Genghis Khan. Director John Milius, fascinated by Mongol history, lifted the words straight from a historical account of Khan's speech on victory. It perfectly captured Conan's philosophy: survival through strength and domination. Even Conan's ally, Subutai, was named after one of Khan's real generals. Milius wanted the barbarian to feel like an echo of real conquerors, not just a fantasy hero. Every battle cry in the film carries that spirit: ancient, ruthless, and gloriously human. And the casting process behind the hero was just as fierce. Fact 5. The search for the perfect barbarian. Before Arnold Schwarzenegger claimed the role, Hollywood searched everywhere for the perfect Conan. Producers looked at Charles Bronson, Sylvester Stallone, and even Lou Ferrigno. Fresh off The Incredible Hulk, each had the muscle, but none captured the raw, untamed spirit the filmmakers wanted. Then came a young Austrian with a thick accent and a body carved from stone. Many executives doubted him. They thought he looked too modern, sounded too foreign. But director John Milius saw something primal. "He looks like he was born with that sword," he said. Arnold's silent intensity and sheer physical presence convinced everyone he wasn't acting. He was Conan. That decision changed both his life and Hollywood forever. But even legends need preparation, and Arnold took it to another level. Fact 6. Forging the Barbarian, Arnold's brutal training. Becoming Conan wasn't just about muscles, it was about endurance, precision, and pain. Before filming began, Arnold Schwarzenegger trained for months in sword fighting, horseback riding, and stunts. Director John John Milius wanted authenticity, not choreography. Arnold practiced with heavy steel blades until his hands blistered, learning how to swing like a warrior who lived by the sword. He even grew his own hair for the role, rejecting wigs to stay true to the character's raw look. Trainers drilled him on how to move silently, yet strike with fury. By the time cameras rolled, Arnold wasn't pretending. He was a barbarian forged by discipline and fire. But once filming started, that brutal realism went far beyond the training grounds. Fact 7. The day Arnold was chased by real dogs. One of the film's most intense scenes shows Conan sprinting across the desert as a pack of wild dogs hunts him down. What most viewers don't know is those weren't movie tricks. Director John Milius insisted on using real, trained attack dogs to capture authentic fear. Arnold was told they'd stay controlled, but they didn't. On the first take, they got too close. On the second, they ripped his clothes. By the third, one actually bit him. Milius shouted, "Keep running," and the cameras kept rolling. The fear you see on screen is 100% real. Arnold later admitted, "I wasn't acting. I was trying not to die." But the chaos with animals didn't end there. Fact 8. The camel punch heard around the world. If you've seen Conan the Barbarian, you remember the moment Conan punches a camel straight in the face. It's one of the film's strangest and most talked about scenes. What many don't realize is that the animal was real, though sedated and trained for safety. Still, the shot caused controversy after release. Animal rights groups criticized the production, accusing it of being too rough with creatures on set. Director John Milius brushed it off, calling the scene a hymn to survival. Chaos didn't stop there. Explosions frightened horses, goats escaped, and entire desert sets were nearly destroyed by wind. For a movie about conquering the wild, Conan sometimes lost control of its own. But the danger didn't just come from animals. It hid inside the editing room. Fact 9. The lost, bloodier cut of Conan. The version of Conan the Barbarian we know today isn't the one director John Milius intended. His original cut was longer, darker, and far more brutal. Early test screenings reportedly left audiences stunned, not by the violence alone, but by the grim tone that lingered. The film once included extended battle sequences, slower, ritualistic deaths, and a haunting version of Conan's mother's demise. Producer Dino De Laurentiis demanded major edits, trimming nearly 20 minutes to make it more commercial. Those lost scenes were locked away and never officially restored. Fans still speculate about them, calling it the true Barbarian's cut. What survived was a tamed legend, still fierce but missing a few scars. And while scenes were lost, some of what remained became cinematic legend. Fact 10. The $10,000 swords forged for a legend. Every swing of Conan's blade had weight, literally. The production commissioned 2 handcrafted swords from master blacksmith Jody Sampson, each costing around $10,000 in 1981. Made of high-carbon steel, they weren't props. They were fully functional weapons balanced to Arnold's grip and fighting style. Sampson spent months shaping and engraving the blades with runes inspired by Norse and Celtic mythology. The crew nicknamed them the Kings, and only Arnold was allowed to wield them on set. He trained with them until they became extensions of his arms. Today, those swords are considered works of art, displayed in museums and private collections. Like the film itself, they weren't just made, they were forged. And while the steel defined Conan's body, the music gave him his soul. Fact 11. The sound of steel, a score that roared like battle. Composer Basil Polidorus didn't just write a soundtrack, he built a sonic mythology. For Conan the Barbarian, he composed an orchestral score that felt ancient and powerful, blending war chants, choirs, and thunderous percussion. Recorded with a 90-piece orchestra and a 24-voice choir, every strike of the blade had a musical echo. The opening anvil of Crom became iconic, pounding like the heartbeat of a god. Milius said, "Without Basil, Conan would have been a brute. With him, he became legend." The music elevated every scene from brutal to epic, turning violence into poetry. Decades later, the score remains one of cinema's greatest, fierce, beautiful, and eternal. But behind the epic music, another force brought life and danger to the screen. Fact 12. The warrior who fought beside Conan. In Robert E. Howard's original stories, Conan's great love was a pirate queen named Belette. But for the film, director John Milius wanted something different, a warrior who matched Conan's strength and spirit. So Valeria was born, played by Sandal Bergman. Milius called her a Valkyrie, not a damsel. To embody that, Bergman trained for months in sword combat and performed nearly all her own stunts, earning scars along the way. Her chemistry with Arnold was raw and magnetic, 2 warriors bound by battle and fate. When Valeria returns as a ghostly spirit to save Conan, it's one of the film's most emotional moments. Love reborn as legend, but not every legend on set was forged safely. Some stories turned truly bizarre. Fact 13. The vulture scene that went too afar. One of the strangest and most unsettling moments in Conan the Barbarian comes when Conan, crucified under the burning sun, bites a vulture's neck to survive. That shocking scene was filmed using 2 real birds, one alive, one already dead. The production received criticism after it was revealed that the crew used a taxidermied vulture for the close-up shot, which made the moment disturbingly realistic. Arnold later said it was one of the hardest scenes he'd ever done, hanging for hours under the desert sun, covered in fake blood, pretending to die while vultures circled. The result? A moment equal parts horrifying and iconic. Proof that Milius was willing to go to extremes for realism. But even the strangest scenes had deep roots in Conan's original tales. Fact 14. Ancient tales hidden in the film. Many of Conan the Barbarian's most powerful scenes weren't inventions of Hollywood. They came straight from Robert E. Howard's pulp stories of the 1930s. The snake cult, the towers, and even Conan's grim philosophy about civilization being a lie of the weak all trace back to Howard's original writings. The writers borrowed heavily from tales like The Tower of the Elephant and Queen of the Black Coast, blending them into a single mythic journey. It wasn't a faithful adaptation, it was a resurrection. By mixing multiple stories, the film created a world that felt ancient and alive, like a dream half-remembered from another age. And when that world finally reached theaters, not everyone saw it the same way. Fact 15. The controversy that forged a cult classic. When Conan the Barbarian hit theaters in 1982, reactions were divided. Critics called it violent, primitive, even fascist fantasy, accusing it of glorifying brutality. But audiences saw something else: raw power and poetry in motion. The movie grossed nearly $80 million worldwide, turning Arnold Schwarzenegger into a star and igniting a new wave of sword and sorcery films. Religious groups protested. Fans cheered louder. Over time, what was once condemned became celebrated, studied, and endlessly quoted. Today, Conan the Barbarian stands as the film that redefined cinematic myth. Brutal, beautiful, and unapologetically alive. And even decades later, the legend refused to die. Fact 16. The King Who Never Returned. After the success of Conan the Barbarian, the plan was to make 4 films following Conan's rise from slave to king. But only one sequel, Conan the Destroyer, 1984, ever happened. Lighter, cheaper, and far less savage. The others were abandoned, buried under studio politics and changing trends. Yet Arnold never gave up on the legend. For decades, he's spoken about returning as an older, battle-worn king in the legend of Conan. Scripts were written, concept art drawn, and teaser posters made. But Hollywood stayed silent. Still, Arnold keeps the original sword displayed in his home gym, waiting. It's time to show what kind of king he became, he once said. The saga isn't over, just sleeping. Now let's bring the legend full circle. Conan the Barbarian wasn't just a movie. It was a myth reborn through chaos, obsession, and sheer willpower. From a post-apocalyptic script that almost destroyed the project to real danger on set and swords that could truly kill, every part of its creation felt larger than life. Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't just act. He embodied the idea of strength through struggle. Decades later, the film still burns with that same primal energy, proof that some legends never fade. They wait, like Conan's sword, for the next hand brave enough to lift it. So which part of this story surprised you most? Tell us in the comments and let the legend live on.